Hey everybody, how's it going? It's the Daily Shooter, and today I've got a good one for you. We're going to be taking a look at the brand new Vortex AMG UH-1 Gen 2. This is a holographic weapon sight with a lot to offer, so let's check it out. This channel is proud to be supported by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Make sure you check that link in the description box, become a member, and donate when you can, and be part of the fight for our Second Amendment rights. And by the USCCA. The USCCA will defend you should you find the need to defend yourself with a firearm, whether in your house or out of your house. They're going to be at your side through the entire thing. So make sure you become a member of the USCCA. Links down below. Now, I reviewed the original Vortex UH-1 years ago, and I remember thinking at the time, this is a really nice sight. There's not that much I would change. There was a couple things that I would like to see, but still not that much. Had great glass, nice reticle. It was definitely built like a tank, just like this one is. But it seems like Vortex went back to the drawing board and really addressed a lot of the concerns that they were getting from their customers, and then applied that to the Gen 2. So the Gen 2 is a nicer sight, definitely. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take this thing off. We're going to take it to the table. We'll take a closer look at it. And we'll talk about why something like this might be a good idea for you. And we'll talk about some of the differences that you're going to find in, let's say, like a red dot reflex sight versus a holographic sight. This is a holographic sight right here. So let's go ahead and take this thing off. We'll take a closer look. Now, in full transparency, this optic was sent to the channel by OpticsPlanet for me to test out and review for you guys. If you want a discount code and links, all you have to do is check out my website. That'll be linked down below. And as you scroll down, you'll see a banner for OpticsPlanet with the discount code and links. You'll be able to head over there and check one of these out. So let's go ahead and get to the review. Okay, so here's a closer look at the Vortex AMG UH-1 Gen 2. And right off the bat, you can see this thing is pretty much a tank. It's a fairly large optic, but surprisingly, it's not as heavy as it looks. I have a scale here. We'll weigh it with the battery in just a second, but for me, this thing feels about the same weight as a typical Trijicon MRO or something like that. So if you're okay with that weight, you're going to be fine with this as well. It definitely weighs under a pound, but looks like it weighs more than a pound. Now, they did that for a couple different reasons. The first one being it's tough. It's just built tough. The housing on this thing is absolutely incredible. But two, because it's a holographic sight, and holographic sights tend to work a little bit different than your typical red dot, and so there's more technology built into this than you're going to find in a traditional red dot, and so it's obviously going to be a little bit bigger, just like an EOTech or something like that. There's just a little bit more going on. So with the UH-1, we have a couple differences versus the original Gen 2, and these are differences that I definitely enjoy. One is going to be the fact that it's lighter. They have some weight relieving cuts going on here that kind of lighten that up. You can see we have some weight relieving cuts towards the back. I know it's a little bit difficult to see on camera, but they remove some material towards the back on the side, and then you can definitely see it on the top a little bit more. They took out some material on the top as well, just to kind of help, alleviate some of that weight. And then on the other side. Now, another thing that I like about this one versus the Gen 1 is that the coating on this is flat black. Now, I don't know if it's the same for all of the original Gen 1s, but my Gen 1 had kind of a glossy, or at least a very shiny coating on it. Both are Type 3 hard anodized coatings, but this one right here has no reflection whatsoever. So the coating is significantly better, in my opinion, or at least significantly nicer looking, in my opinion, than the original coating that was on these. Another thing that you're going to find different versus the original Gen 1 is this one has a dedicated night vision button. So where my previous model did not have any night vision capabilities, this one right here actually has 4 different night vision settings that are quick access through that center button right there. So there's a total of 15 different brightness levels with 4 night vision levels, which is really nice. We also have auto sleep and stuff like that. So there's a couple different things on here that are different than the original. And if I remember right, I believe my original Vortex UH-1 had a USB charging port on it that you could charge a rechargeable CR123A, so you could actually charge it. But what I didn't like about that charging port on the original is that it had a kind of like a rubber flap on it that you'd have to push down and keep in there. And if that rubber flap was open or exposed and water got in there, it didn't seem like it was going to be watertight and that could get corroded. So I like the fact that they got rid of that, and that's no longer an option on here. I just felt like it was kind of an unnecessary option on that particular optic, especially if you're trying to build something tough. This still uses a CR123A battery, which is very easy to find. They're in common use in most tactical flashlights and stuff like that these days. You can find them at the market. You can find them at most stores. So battery is right there in this little compartment. And another thing they did is in the battery compartment on this one, they added this little flap. Okay, so there's this little flap. Just pull it up with your fingernail. This flap comes up and it gives you a way to torque on that battery compartment. So instead of using a case head or a coin or something like that, you know, some type of tool in order to open up the battery compartment, this one is completely toolless. You flip up that flap right there and it gives you enough torque to be able to open up that battery compartment, which is kind of a nice touch there as well. Still has a nice quick detach lever. Vortex's quick detach levers are really nice because they're locking levers. So basically what you do is you push down on this little button right there. That locks everything into place. You can go ahead, you flip that up, and it's spring loaded, so this thing pops out on the side right there. And then when you flip it back down, it locks itself into place. So this thing's not going to open up if it gets stuck on gear, or you know, you putting it in the safe and maybe it grabs onto something else that you have in the safe and then pops off, so you go and grab your rifle when you actually need it, and it no longer has an optic on it because it popped off. So having a nice locking lever like that to me is kind of necessary. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about some of those differences between a red dot and a holographic sight, because there's advantages and disadvantages to each. Now, you can find pretty much the same reticle between both of them. You can get that 65 MOA ring with a 1 or 2 MOA dot or a 3 MOA dot, depending on what you're looking at, and that's going to be the same across the board. But it's how that dot is emitted that kind of changes the battery life. Again, there's more going on in a holographic sight than in a red dot. In a typical red dot these days, you can find something that goes anywhere from 50,000 hours, even up to 100,000 hours before you have to change the battery. In a holographic sight, you're going to notice pretty much across the board that battery life is going to be significantly less. This Vortex right here has about 1,500 hours of runtime on a medium setting. So you can see 1,500 is a lot less than 50,000, right? So what is the advantage of going with holographic sight over a red dot? Well, one of the advantages is that a red dot, if you look at the red dot and just stare at the red dot itself, you're going to see a nice clear red dot. But if you focus on the target using a red dot, that red dot will become blurry. That's just the way that it works. It's not going to stay clear through your entire focal range as your target gets further and further out and you're trying to focus on the target itself. With a holographic sight, because it uses a laser as a projector rather than a low power emitting LED like a red dot, that laser emitted reticle is going to appear clear at any focal range, even with both eyes open. So as you're looking at a target, let's say that's 10 yards away, and then you're looking at another target, or you transition between one target that's 10 yards, and then you move over to a target that's at 50 yards, the reticle, even if you're focusing on the target, is going to appear clear to your eye. So that's kind of the big advantage between either one. The red dot's going to get blurry, whereas the holographic sight is still going to have a nice clear reticle, again, at any focal range that you're looking. So that's kind of where the advantage is, and you have to kind of figure whether or not that's going to be something that could affect you, or if it's something that could maybe add to quicker target acquisition, because obviously if you're going to be shooting with both eyes open, which is something you can do with both sights, having a clear reticle, I think, definitely gives this the advantage. If you can find batteries and just remember that, you know, every couple months I'm going to just change out the battery on this, then to me, battery life isn't that big of a deal. You switch out the battery every couple months if you're using it a lot. I mean, 1,500 hours depends on how much you're actually using it. I mean, if you use this thing 1,500 hours, you know, straight through in a couple months, that would be very impressive to me. So for a lot of people, they're just going to take this, put it in the safe, and it's just going to sit there, and then they'll take it out once a month, once every couple months, or, you know, however often you go shooting. So the battery life is going to last you a lot longer than just 1,500 straight hours in a row. You know, a lot of people calculate that as 1,500 hours, and so it's only going to last me a couple months. So that's 1,500 hours of use, so it's good to keep that in mind as well. So yeah, the battery life is going to be lower, but the reticle is going to appear better. Now, another thing I want to mention real quick is that this does have a circle dot reticle. I believe it's called their EBR CQB reticle. It's a very nice reticle. Basically, it's like a broken circle that has some hash marks on it and a 1 MOA dot. So it's got a very fine, very simple 1 MOA dot that you can use for precision shooting. And then it has the hash marks and the draw points, things like that, as part of the reticle, so that you can use it for more of a, you know, distance shot, something like that. I know it's difficult to see this reticle, so I'll try and roll something in, but that's what the reticle looks like right there. Another thing that you should notice here, or take into account, is that the reticle is going to appear different than a traditional red dot as well. So if you took a red dot that had a ring dot reticle, and you held it up next to this, which also has that ring dot reticle, you might notice that this one, again, because it uses a laser, could appear more jaded than a typical clean looking circle dot reticle. If you don't have an astigmatism, you know what I'm talking about. It's just a nice clean looking reticle. This one might appear to be a little bit different. To me, it's not any better or any worse. It just looks different. So if you look through this and you're used to red dots and you see a reticle that just looks a little bit different in the way that it appears, don't freak out. You don't have to call Vortex or return it or anything. That's normal for a holographic sight. Same for EOTechs and stuff like that. Okay, so now that we've talked about that stuff, let's go ahead and put this thing on the scale and see how much it weighs. Because again, like I was saying, it looks like it's heavier than it actually is. So let's go ahead and take this scale. We'll move the scale over here, make sure that it's zeroed out, put this thing on top, and we get 11.7 ounces. So 11.7 ounces isn't bad. That's with the battery installed, and it's a fairly good sized battery. So a total of 11.7 ounces, I think, is definitely doable. Now, this is also a Vortex, and with Vortex comes some really nice warranties. I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people buy Vortex or even like Vortex. I mean, aside from the fact that they make some really nice stuff, but one of the reasons that people buy Vortex is because of that warranty. Their warranty is pretty much bomb-proof. If something happens to your optic, all you have to do is you send it in, they'll fix it, send it back to you. Turnaround time's pretty quick with them, and if something happens to it and they can't fix it, they will send you a new one. So it's nice knowing that you have this optic pretty much for life. You know, something happens to it, you just send it back and they'll send you a new one. If they don't make them anymore, I'm sure they'd send you whatever, you know, their latest model was or something like that. So again, you get that Vortex warranty and you get all the nice features. You get a really tough bomb-proof optic, and you also get some pretty nice glass. I know that it's pretty much impossible to see on camera here, but this glass looks really nice. As far as like reflection goes, you know, if you're looking through this and you want to like compare it to a typical red dot, you're not going to have the same blue-green hue that you would on some red dots. In order to increase battery life on some red dots, they'll put a pretty heavy reflective layer on it, and you'll get that blue-green kind of look as you look through it. With a holographic sight, you really don't have to worry about that much. You get that really nice clean, crystal clear look out of this thing. So it looks really nice. It does not adjust the color very much at all. And it has all of Vortex's nice coatings and stuff. So again, it's a really nice optic. And definitely, I don't think you would be upset with your purchase. And I definitely don't think that it, you know, would be money that you would be regretting have spent on this thing. I think it's a really nice optic that a lot of people would get some good use out of. And it's not too bad in terms of price when you compare it with other really nice high-end optics. They can get really expensive, and this thing comes in at a really good price. So again, you can always use that discount code over at OpticsPlanet, which you can find on my website. My website will be linked down below, and save yourself a little bit of money on pretty much anything from OpticsPlanet. So again, I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please like, subscribe. Have a great day.